We knew what happened in the script because John H.T.'s line was, "Oh my God, Hollywood wanted Meryl Streep, but the company said no one would watch a woman fight monsters." After Sigourney Weaver walked in, films would never be the same again. But she quit the series that made her famous after 4 films. Now that she's 75, she's telling the scary truth about the failed clones, the FBI threats, and the dark secret that made her refuse millions of dollars to come back. The real name of Sigourney Weaver's birth date is October 8, 1949. People already knew about her family. Many people knew her father, Pat Weaver, from TV. He made The Tonight Show and The Today Show, which changed TV forever. Elizabeth English was her mother. She was an actor who was in The 39 Steps, 1935, but quit to raise her family. Sigourney also had famous family members. Comic Doodles Weaver was her uncle, and Steve Allen, the first host of The Tonight Show, was her godfather. She didn't feel like she fit even with everything going on. Both of her parents were working, so she often felt like no one was paying attention to her. She once said that she felt alone and like a little girl in a big house. She wasn't the type to depend on how well her family did. She didn't try to become an actress. Instead, she went to Stanford to study English literature. She didn't do normal things in college. She lived in a treehouse with her boyfriend, played the flute, and for fun dressed up as elves. She played parts in school plays like A Streetcar Named Desire, but she didn't think it was fun to be an actor. After college, she went to Israel to work on a farm, which changed everything. She chose to apply to Yale School of Drama because she missed telling stories so much. Yale wasn't simple. Other actresses in her class, like Meryl Streep, always got the best parts, but Sigourney had to play old ladies, which was rude for someone in their early 20s. The teachers didn't trust her. She was even told by one, "You have no talent, you should leave." But she didn't give up. She was set on proving them wrong. But before all that, she did something big when she was 14. She changed her name. The name Sigourney caught her attention in The Great Gatsby, and she liked it better. By 6th grade, she was already 5'11", and she didn't think Susan would fit someone that tall. People made fun of her height by calling her the giant spider. She felt stronger after changing her name, and that unusual name helped her in Hollywood. Some casting directors thought Sigourney was a man's name and were surprised when she showed up, which helped her get noticed. Things started to get better at Yale when she met Christopher Durang, a fellow student who also felt like an outsider. Sigourney played a woman in Titanic 1976 who kept live animals inside her body. It was weird, but it showed that she could be weird and emotional at the same time. Then they made Das Lusitania Songspiel, a crazy play that made fun of war and capitalism. In it, Sigourney played a sex worker who smashed champagne bottles while singing about money. Critics thought it was crazy, but Warren Beatty liked it and called it punk theater. As her last performance at Yale, she chose to do a piece about a woman seducing a refrigerator instead of a serious monologue. Her teachers didn't like it, but Durang gave the script to some agents behind their backs, which led to her first off-Broadway role. Before she was in Alien, she was a part of New York's strange theater scene. She and Durang kept working together, making plays more unusual. In Das Lusitania Songspiel, they added a hedgehog puppet to represent capitalism, a version of Romeo and Juliet where the lovers yelled Marxist slogans, and a scene where Sigourney dressed as the Titanic and sank while singing. A famous director, Mike Nichols, saw her in that movie and later cast her in a Broadway play. Her first movie role wasn't great. She only had 6 seconds in Annie Hall, 1977, and was just standing next to Woody Allen and Diane Keaton in a trench coat. She later joked, "I made $50 and spent it on a sandwich." It was embarrassing, but it ended up helping her. The casting director, Juliet Taylor, remembered her and later suggested her for Alien. And because no one expected the girl from Annie Hall to fight a monster, it made her performance in Alien even more surprising. Later, fans started playing a game called Where's Sigourney? It was kind of funny trying to find her in Annie Hall. She was mostly in the background for her first big movie role, but soon she wouldn't be. Sigourney Weaver's role in Alien changed sci-fi forever, but it almost didn't happen. The original script from 1976 didn't say what gender the character was, but early drafts used male pronouns. No one thought the lead would be a woman, so when director Ridley Scott and 20th Century Fox president Alan Ladd Jr. decided to make Ripley a woman, it was a huge risk. Weaver, who was only 29, wasn't even the first choice for the part. Meryl Streep and Glenn Close were also considered. But Weaver got it, and she played Ripley in a way that no one had seen before. She wasn't weak, and she wasn't waiting to be saved. Hollywood didn't value her smarts, toughness, or ability to live. Her co-star John Hurt made $250,000, but she only got $35,000. At first, Fox didn't even want her because they didn't think a female action hero would work. Scott had to show them they were wrong. He trained her with former Marines to make her look strong and sure of herself around machinery. It paid off. People were shocked when the male captain, played by Tom Skerritt, died first. Ripley wasn't just a supporting character, she was the only one left alive. No one saw Sigourney Weaver's Oscar nomination for Aliens in 1987 coming because Hollywood didn't take sci-fi seriously at the time. The Academy usually gave awards to romantic comedies or emotional dramas, not action films with aliens and explosions, but Weaver's performance as Ellen Ripley was too strong to ignore. The other nominees that year played women who were going through personal or emotional problems. Ripley was different. She was brave, strong, and smart. She led soldiers into battle, fought off scary creatures, and kept a little girl safe. Weaver was nominated for an Oscar, but Marlee Matlin won for Children of a Lesser God. Matlin was the first deaf actor to win an Oscar, and many people thought Weaver was robbed because the Academy still didn't respect science fiction. But her nomination changed things, and when Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for Gravity years later, people saw it as proof that Weaver had helped make it possible for women to be in action films. 2 years later, in 1989, Weaver did something no one had ever done. One for Working Girl, where she played a cruel boss, and the other for Gorillas in the Mist, where she played real-life scientist Diane Fossey. No actor had ever won 2 acting awards in the same night before, and no one has since. These 2 roles showed how talented she was. In Gorillas in the Mist, she completely changed into Fossey, a woman who spent her life protecting gorillas. Weaver spent months studying Fossey's behavior, even living with real gorillas. It was hard. She got dysentery while filming in Rwanda and wouldn't use a stunt double for dangerous scenes. In Working Girl, she played the opposite of that character. An obnoxious, manipulative boss who takes credit from her assistant. She was so good at it that people in Hollywood said she must have been channeling every horrible boss they had ever met. After that night, Weaver laughed about it and said, "I think the voters got confused and checked my name twice." Even with all her success, she didn't want to keep playing the same type of role. After Aliens, Hollywood kept offering her tough action roles, but she turned them down. She didn't want to be typecast, so she turned down roles in Total Recall and The Silence of the Lambs, both of which were huge hits. Instead, she chose roles that pushed her in new ways. In The Ice Storm, she played a quiet, unhappy housewife, which won her a BAFTA. In Death and the Maiden, she played a woman confronting her former abuser, which was so intense that the director called it emotional surgery. She made an impact even when she wasn't on screen. Her voice in Wall-E showed that she could captivate audiences even when she wasn't seen. But sci-fi always had a way of calling her back. She came back for Alien 3, but only on her terms. She wanted Ripley's story to have meaning, not just another sequel with mindless action. She wanted her character's death to have a reason. Still, Sigourney Weaver's time on Alien 3 was a nightmare. The movie's original plot was set on a wooden monastery planet where a group of monks lived alone. They thought Ripley was a test from God, and when the xenomorph showed up, they thought it was their punishment for sin. This version, written by Vincent Ward, was approved by Fox in 1900, and it had creepy religious imagery, hand-carved wooden corridors, candlelit rituals, and a slow-burning horror that mixed faith and fear. Weaver later said that this was the point in Hollywood's history when they stopped taking risks and started making films just to make money. The script was thrown out, the sets were only half built, and the movie had no plot. Fox was scared because test audiences didn't like the idea that the little girl from Aliens would be killed off screen, so they changed everything at the last minute to take place on a prison planet instead. This wasted millions of dollars and made the whole production a mess. Fox hired David Fincher to direct this mess. He was only 28 years old and had only made music videos before. From the start, the studio controlled everything he did. Every morning, he had to fight with executives just to shoot the scenes the way he wanted to. He was working with a script that had been ripped apart and rewritten many times. One draft was from cyberpunk author William Gibson and was about bioweapons in the Cold War, while another was from Near Dark's Eric Red and was more scary. In the end, none of that was used. The movie took parts from Walter Hill's draft of A Prison Break, but none of Ward's spiritual or spooky parts of the monastery script were used. Fincher's dark, unsettling style was always turned down by the studio. He wanted the opening credits to show Ripley's autopsy, which would have made her grief feel real and painful, but Fox cut it because it was too sad. On set, some crew members made fun of him, and one producer told him, "You could piss against a wall for 2 hours and call it Alien 3. It'll still make $30 million. Fincher was so angry that he quit Hollywood for a while after the movie. He didn't want studios to control his films when he got back, which is why films like Seven happened his way, on his terms. Weaver had her own problems. In Alien 3, Ripley had a shaved head, wore plain prison clothes, and looked worn out from being exposed to radiation. A lot of people thought I was crazy. Makeup artists used prosthetic glue on her scalp, but it gave her terrible allergic Shelley Long used to be one of the most painful rashes, and they had to switch to medical-grade glue, which still slowed down filming. Fox wanted a wig because they thought audiences wouldn't find her attractive enough. Fincher wanted it to be real, but Weaver refused. She later said, "Ripley wasn't there to be desirable, she was there to survive." Fox didn't like this, so they took her co-producer credit out of early trailers and advertised the movie with the tagline, "The Xenomorph is back." Weaver was very angry and said it was cheap and insulting. She had worked hard to have a say in the movie after Aliens and was strong enough to demand script approval. When the studio killed off Newt and Hicks, she insisted that Ripley had to die too because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. But the endless rewrites wore her out, and she later admitted that the whole thing made her feel tired and defeated. It also showed her how Hollywood treated women. Male executives thought she was crazy for having creative ideas, and crew members didn't like following orders from a woman. It made her think about quitting acting because of it. But she still stood up for Fincher. She thought the movie was ruined by studio interference, but she saw the good in what Fincher was trying to do. After the movie came out, Fincher himself didn't want anything to do with it. He said, "No one hates it more than me." When Fox released a longer cut of the movie in 2003 that included 30 minutes of deleted footage, he refused to be involved. The scene he hated the most was Ripley's death. Originally, she was supposed to kill herself by jumping into molten lead, but at the last minute, Fox changed it so that the xenomorph burst from her chest as she fell. Fincher thought it was stupid and pointless, just a way to copy Terminator 2's famous ending. Weaver, on the other hand, still has mixed feelings. She knows the movie has problems, but she also thinks it was brave. She admires Fincher for not playing it safe. She thought killing Ripley made Ripley's grief more real. The movie has gained a cult following over time, and some fans now like its themes of corporate exploitation and bodily autonomy. Weaver thinks the movie deserved more praise than the hate it got. Weaver played a clone named Ripley 8 in Alien Resurrection 1997, but she wasn't the same Ripley. Scientists had mixed her DNA with that of the xenomorphs, giving her strange powers. She was stronger, faster, and had acid for blood. She could even sense the aliens, almost like she was one of them. Weaver wanted to show this by the way she moved. There were times when she stalked, knelt, and looked through people like a predator. In one scene, she even growled, "I'm the monster's mother." But Ripley 8 wasn't just dangerous, she was also lost. In one of the scariest scenes of the movie, she found a lab full of failed clones of herself that were twisted, deformed, and suffering. One of them begged her to kill it, and that's when she realized she wasn't just a copy of Ripley. She was something else entirely. The movie got bad reviews because it was too strange, but Weaver defended it by saying that Ripley had changed and that she wanted to show that. One of the most famous scenes in the movie wasn't even supposed to happen that way. Ripley had to throw a basketball over her shoulder without looking, and the director wanted to use CGI to fake it, but Weaver wouldn't let him. She trained with an NBA coach for weeks and was ready to spend the whole day trying to get the perfect take on the day of filming. But on the very first try, she did it. Everyone on set was shocked, and Ron Perlman, who was in the scene, broke character and yelled, "Holy crap!" They had to cut the scene short because his reaction wasn't in the script. People still talk about it, calling it one of the biggest flukes in movie history. Even Weaver joked, "I could have won a halftime show." The movie got a lot of flack when it first came out, but over time, people started to love it for how crazy it was. It had some really weird parts, like a human xenomorph hybrid with big, creepy eyes and a scientist talking to the aliens like they were his pets. Then there was Weaver, who was completely crazy. She said silly things like, "Who do I have to get off this boat?" And in one scene, she even licked Winona's blood. There were some scenes that worked well, like the underwater chase where xenomorphs chased the crew through flooded hallways. It was scary and intense. But there were also scenes that just didn't work, like the one where the hybrid alien gets sucked out into space through a tiny hole. Critics called it one of the worst CGI moments ever. Weaver admitted the movie had problems, but she didn't regret making it. "It's not Alien, but it's something," she said. After that, Weaver made sure that Ripley's story wouldn't be turned into a cheap action franchise, which is why she refused to be in Alien vs. Predator in 2004. She thought the idea was silly. It would be like making Jaws fight Godzilla. She said she had already asked for Ripley to die in Alien 3 because she didn't want the character to be brought back just for money. When Fox decided to make AP, she was furious. Over the years, she never changed her mind. She wanted Ripley to be remembered as a real sci-fi hero, not just another action figure in a franchise. Even after she was done with the movies, Weaver found a way to bring Ripley back through video games. She voiced Ripley in Alien Isolation 2014, a game about the game's creators asked her to record dialogue for a special mission where players could experience scenes. Sigourney Weaver's career has been marked by brave choices, performances that change the course of history, and a refusal to conform to the traditional expectations of Hollywood stardom. Her journey shows how willing she is to push boundaries, whether it's through her roles in iconic franchises like Alien or her more recent projects that show off her range and creativity. In the 2014 video game Alien Isolation, she returned to voice Ripley and worked with the original cast to make the experience feel real. She thought this game, which was more about fear and survival than action, should have been more like Alien 3. Fans were surprised when she agreed to do it, since she had turned down so many Alien projects in the past. For Weaver, it was about letting Ripley exist without the baggage of Hollywood's commercialization, making it a refreshing return to the character she helped define. At age 61, Weaver shocked everyone again by playing Kiri, a 14-year-old Na'vi girl in Avatar: The Way of Water. No AI or special tricks were used, she just acted the part. To prepare, she read her old diaries, worked with coaches, and even enjoyed the awkwardness of being a teenager. James Cameron praised her for how hard she worked to play Kiri honestly. The visual effects team worked hard to make her look younger, but Weaver's performance was all her own. In The Defenders, Weaver played the bad guy Alexandra Reed, who didn't want to rule the world but just stay alive. She played Reed as smart and strong in a quiet, subtle way, especially in the scary scene where she poisoned someone's tea. Fans and critics alike praised this performance, which showed that Weaver could play more than just bad guys. On Broadway, she played a washed-up actress in Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, which gave her a chance to embrace chaos. She brought her own crazy style to the production by doing her own stunts and going off script for 7 minutes to rant about 1980s soap operas. Her demand for real vodka on stage and her crazy moments backstage, like tripping over a rug and breaking David Hyde Pierce's rib, showed her dedication to being real and her unbridled energy. Her satirical role in Galaxy Quest let her poke fun at her sci-fi past. When she played Gwen DeMarco, a character who made fun of the often silly roles women get in space movies, Weaver used her fame to criticize the genre's limits. Her improvised lines, like one that almost got the movie a R rating, showed how well she could break expectations. Weaver also made a cameo in Ghostbusters Afterlife, which wasn't just for fun. It hinted that Dana Barrett had secretly paid for the Ghostbusters' return and might have psychic power. She even refused to use makeup to make her look older, saying that her character had lines from living through the chaos of the Ghostbusters world. She originally wanted Dana to fight Zool, but she insisted that she stay calm in the midst of the chaos, which helped her vision of the character even more. Weaver's marriage to Jim Simpson, which ended in 1984, is one of the few long-term relationships in Hollywood. They have a daughter named Charlotte, who is now a non-binary professor at Columbia University who studies AI and digital storytelling. Despite her huge fame, Weaver chose a quieter life, hiking in New York, and staying out of Hollywood drama. She even had trouble balancing motherhood and work, especially when Avatar was filming and Char was applying to colleges. Weaver had a hard time getting roles early in her career because she was too tall for the male actors she was competing with. She joked that she painted shoes on her feet to make herself look shorter. Her daughter Char doesn't care much about her mother's fame and often brushes off any talk of Alien as not being relevant to her life. Weaver has also been a strong supporter of causes that are important to her, such as raising awareness about heart disease, which affects more women than all cancers put together. In Call Jane, 2022, she backed abortion rights, which shows that she is still committed to speaking out on important issues. From Ripley to Kiri to Gwen DeMarco, Sigourney Weaver's career has been about breaking down barriers, questioning norms, and always staying true to her art. She has been a sci-fi icon and an actress who has handled her career with grace, humor, and a deep respect for her craft. Sigourney Weaver is a well-known figure in Hollywood and beyond because she is dedicated to both her craft and her activism. In 2022, she played a woman in an underground abortion network in the movie Call Jane. Weaver said that the film's message was more important than ever because it showed how important women's rights and access to safe abortion services are. Her role in such a timely and important movie made her even more determined to use her fame for good causes. Besides acting, Weaver has spent over 30 years fighting for gorilla conservation. After starring in Gorillas in the Mist, 1988, she became a strong supporter of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. She has led efforts to protect these beautiful animals and has won many awards for her efforts. Her commitment to this cause shows how much she values wildlife conservation as a part of her legacy. You can also find Weaver taking strong stands on issues that aren't always easy or popular. For example, during a performance of The Tempest in 2025, climate activists interrupted the show to protest. The audience booed them, but Weaver supported them, saying that their message fit perfectly with the play's themes. She has always shown this kind of support for causes bigger than herself, which shows that she is dedicated to both her roles and fighting for change, no matter how hard it is. Even though she didn't fight for her own pay in public, Weaver had a huge impact on how women are portrayed in action films in Hollywood. Her role as Ellen Ripley in Alien showed that women could be in charge of big-budget, high-stakes films, breaking down barriers and making room for more female-driven stories. Viola Davis has spoken out about the pay gap between black and white actresses, saying that she makes a fraction of what white actresses do. Weaver played a huge part in this changing landscape. For Alien, she was only paid $330,000, but as her career went on, especially with Avatar, she made a lot more money, paving the way for future generations of women in Hollywood. Weaver has also been a strong voice for other women in the industry, supporting projects like Prayers for Bobby, which dealt with LGBTQ+ issues, and actresses like Elizabeth Banks in Call Jane. She has used her power to make sure that important stories are told, especially those that give voice to voices that aren't heard enough. Weaver has been a strong supporter of global issues outside of Hollywood for years. As a UN Goodwill Ambassador, she has spent years speaking out about important issues like climate change, deforestation, and plastic pollution. Her activism doesn't stop at the red carpet. She has taken real steps, like making her New York apartment a meeting place for climate activists like Greta Thunberg during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2015, she risked arrest to protest the Keystone XL pipeline, saying, "Silence." This mantra has guided her throughout her life, showing that she believes activism is more than just words. Sigourney Weaver's activism and work to make the world a better place show that her legacy goes far beyond her famous parts. She has shown over and over that action isn't just a cause to her, it's a big part of who she is.